Been watching a lot of YouTube researching medical information, history, engineering, and I came up with an idea of how the ancients could have been much, much wiser than we are today, and yet been able to hide their knowledge and or have their knowledge lost, so we can't duplicate it, and yet we still have the structures, stone, metal, engineering feats of canals, things like that, because it's all a part of human nature. King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever has been will be. Human beings are always going around in circles, inventing and reinventing. It's called research. You know that? It's research. All the time. And then the new guy comes along and says, oh, I've got something great. And he doesn't realize that the older guys just didn't tell him. I once asked my father, because see, he hunted and fished as a child, and he taught us how to build slingshots. So I know how to make a slingshot the old-fashioned way, because my dad taught me. On the other hand, he didn't teach me how to build snares. Well, why didn't you teach us how to build snares? I asked him once. He goes, because I know you guys build them and you'd probably kill our own cats. Or the local dogs, This isn't the place for snares. Oh, okay. So I didn't get that specific knowledge because my dad just didn't tell me that. But I've worked in engineering companies where the older engineers won't tell the young engineers how things go so they can stay in charge and stay in control. And then I've seen the younger engineers, or the mid-level engineers especially, they'll turn around and they won't tell the younger guys and they won't tell the older guys so they can get in positions of power and control. And so you get this great big struggle for, who's got the power, who's got the control, who's got the insights into how projects should run. That's in a worst case scenario. There's that infighting, getting ahead. And then of course there's always well, I think my idea is better than your idea, so we'll exclude you from the project and just our part of the project will go ahead. But in ancient times it wasn't we'll just exclude you, we'll just kill you. Well, that's pretty much it. The king, his nobles, they do this and that. The other guys they don't like, they just knock them off, slip a sharp stick under a rib, and who knows what's already been invented. Well, everything's already been invented, right? There's nothing new under the sun. So you can see, maybe the last pyramid, the guy was like, well, wait a minute, I don't want anybody else to be able to build a pyramid like mine. So they bury all the engineers, all the architects, take some of the products out on boats, dump them in the ocean, burn a few papyrus reeds, and we don't know how they did it because, after all, they do like modern people do. They'll destroy all of the stuff by which they did it so that other people can't get it. The military does it all the time. If something's if they can, they'll destroy paperwork, equipment. I mean, the Germans tried to sink their U-boats before we could grab some of the information off of them. We do the same with our stuff. So you can see just human nature of and by itself would account for why the ancients could have left all these marvels and we have no concept of how they did it. The fact that they didn't tell people, or the fact that they killed people who knew, or the fact that new guys came in, they pillaged and they burned stuff, and they're like, what'd you burn up? I don't know, it's just a bunch of books. Okay. So how'd they make them? I don't know. Let's go capture some of the people. Well, we killed all the people. Oh, well, so much for that technology. How could Noah build an ark? The engineers today, they're like, well, it can't be done, a great big huge thing like that, But during World War II, they were building They attempted to build an aircraft carrier out of sawdust and ice, and they could get it to float. They did the experiments, they did the test. When you actually look at that's not saying that the ark was made out of sawdust and ice. We don't know. Doesn't say. See, that's the way you don't pass on information. You just don't say. It's not that it can't be done. It's just people won't tell you. So the next people come along, well, that can't be done. Well, it's because you don't have the information. So yeah, they were trying to build this aircraft carrier out of ice and wood. The material actually turned out to be a lot like steel. In fact, if you look at the tensile strength on the charts for wood and steel, they're actually quite close. That's like snow and wool. There's in the book of Job, God says to Job, I send snow like wool. And if you look on the insulation chart, snow and wool are right there close together. So yeah, snow functions like wool. It's an insulator. Actually keeps, any farmer knows, good covering of snow keeps the frost from going really deep in the soil. But if you don't know, you don't know. What have you been taught today? You look on YouTube and I go and I look at some of these ancient battles, especially like World War II. And the way people describe it with their articles, you know, their speaking and their coloring and their images, and I'm like, wow, that's a really nice video presentation, but you leave out a lot of details and facts you would get if you read the book, let alone talk to somebody who was there. So how great is our history? How much facts do we really know? How much is really passed on? How much people refuse to pass on, you know? And that's how the ancients could have been able to do all of these fantastic things, and yet us today not understand how they did it. Could they have built a wooden airplane that flew 100 miles an hour? You know, and just use little pieces of metal to tie it together? Does that sound unreasonable? I mean, a really fairly fast 100, 200 mile an hour airplane? Out of wood? Plywood, maybe? Think it's unreasonable? Well, actually, if you know history, the British did it in World War II. They were called the mosquitoes. The Germans were like, hey, they're attacking us with wooden airplanes. Granted, they had metal engines. But if the ancients had built wooden airplanes, maybe they had other technology we didn't know. And it's all organic and it rots away, and who's to say? We design cars based on a fish we find in the river. They build an airplane designed on a fish out of a river. Who knows what they know? We see the stuff, it's there. Well, how could this be? Maybe they were just smarter than we are. Or maybe they're just as smart as we are. Or maybe Noah and his 3 sons had technology that we haven't even dreamed of yet. Yet. And they passed on just some of it. And the people who didn't get the information, you know, get back to using stone tools and sticks. Ask anybody in the military or any survivalist. You get dropped out in the woods, you know, you lose your aircraft, you lose your tank, you lose your boat, you lose whatever. You still have knowledge, you still have wisdom. You know how to sharpen a stick. These guys know how to survive. So, ancient man could have just been as wise as we are. I like to think about that dad in the snare. I never learned how to build snares. So, I mean, I could figure it out because there's plenty of books. But I've seen it in engineering companies. Older engineers don't tell the younger guys how things work. And then those older engineers get fired all of a sudden. And then they ask the other engineer, do this, do this. It's like, well, that'll take a while. What do you mean it'll take a while? Well, you know, they were doing it, we didn't. And so we've got to figure out what they did. And I've actually seen it where documentation wasn't there and the new engineers couldn't figure out what the old engineers were doing. And in ancient times, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. That and probably a few sharp pieces of steel or wood into the ribs, you know, because they just got rid of the competition back then. How the ancients could have known more than what we did today, and yet there be no evidence other than a few stone buildings, a few metal pillars, you know, a few incredible designs on the surface of the earth, a few little look like children's toys be left around. It makes sense to me. I've worked in engineering long enough. Enjoy.